Hello, BookTube. Well, we come to it at last. I put it off as long as I could, but GarbAugust is ending. GarbAugust is over. GarbAugust is an event for BookTube. It was created by Ollie at Criminali, and he assembled a baker's dozen of the most deplorable co-hosts imaginable. And the event was designed to celebrate trash for the month of August. Ollie reads a lot of trash on his own channel. And one of the first things that I noticed about his channel that I really liked is that he reads trash not only without apology, but also without losing perspective about what it is. He's not out there saying the giant killer crab novels are good. He just loves to read them. That's all. And it makes them extra entertaining to listen to. And one by one, I have watched my co-hosts bid farewell to GarbAugust. I haven't wanted to let it go myself. It's been so much fun. I have maintained a steady component of trash in my reading forever. Just forever. Partly, even before I knew that what I was reading was trash. Some trash gets hold of you really early on. But also even after that. I have maintained that element in my reading. But to have an event on BookTube with a whole bunch of other people just parading it out in the bright sunlight, that has been just wonderful. I didn't want it to end. But a number of my co-hosts have been making sort of goodbye, farewell, summary videos. And I wanted to do the same. So I jotted down some notes on the iPad mini about what I did on my GarbAugust vacation. What I learned from GarbAugust 2022. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that GarbAugust will come back bigger and stinkier than ever next year. But for 2022, I did learn some things, or rather relearn some things, and I wanted to go over them just as my own fond farewell to GarbAugust 2022. And the first one is something that I knew already. I knew going in, but I've done a lot of extra thinking about it. It's been wonderful to contemplate what trash literature is. And the thing that I knew going in, but that has been extra underlined by GarbAugust, is that there's good trash and there's bad trash. You might think if you don't read trash, you would think it's all bad. But no, there's good trash and there's bad trash. I have been trying to sort of taxonomize what makes good trash versus bad trash. And I was going to make a whole bunch of conceptual videos like that, but GarbAugust got away from me. So I'll have to wait until next year if I'm invited back as a co-host next year. I'll do GarbAugust anyway, even if they don't invite me back. But I've mentioned a few of those things, those taxonomical concerns on this channel in this month. One of which is it's good trash if the author knows it's trash. If the author is in on the joke, then it's good trash. Because then they're going to be over the top intentionally, and they're going to be winking at you the whole time. They're going to want you to check your brain at the door and join them in having a whole bunch of absurd fun. That's one clear way in which trash can be good trash. And another way that I knew it before, but it really occurred to me extra strong in reading The Executioner Boston Blitz, which is that sometimes it's possible for trash to be good if the author has no idea at all that they're writing trash. If the author's conviction, Boy Scout level conviction, comes through on every page, and it's still garbage. If that happens, well, okay, then it's not, for me, quite so much fun as like a Jackie Collins or Jilly Cooper, where they're winking at you. They know you're in on the joke, and they are definitely in on the joke. But if the author, let's say for men's fiction, is completely earnest about what he's doing, and is chucking his whole art into the thing, there's something there. There's something there that saves it sometimes and crosses it into being good trash. I think you could say the same thing about certain movies that are quote-unquote so bad they're good. Some of those are done with absolute sterling sincerity, and yet they most certainly are not winking at you, but you still love them even though they're trash. I've determined that is the case, and I've also, thanks to watching a lot of GarbAugust videos, I've also been able to more closely triangulate what bad trash is. And again, I think there are two main exponents of it. One is when the author is simply inept. And again, you might think all trash is inept, but no, it's not. For instance, that book, Boston Blitz, The Executioner Boston Blitz, was not inept at all. There wasn't a single thing in it that was inept. Unbelievable? Yes. Unlikely? Implausible? Yes. But not inept. No part of it. Even on one level, that a book that I just read, Come Die With Me, was not on one level inept. There is garbage that is. Plenty of it that is. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but a lot of self-published stuff where no one has ever checked it for whether or not it's inept, whether or not it's just poorly done. Same words repeated over and over again, characters that are not introduced or that are too introduced, all the technical things that can make it garbage because they get in the way of you enjoying it. You're stumbling over them and you can't get around them. That's one way for something to be bad garbage, is if it's just inept, if it's just poorly done. And another way for something to be bad garbage is if it reveals that its author is garbage or that it's pandering to garbage people. If you're reading a trash book and it's full of racism, it revels in sadomasochistic sexism, or even fascism, things like that, and it's not the characters who are doing that, or you're reading, you get the sense that the author knows that they're writing for a low-rent publisher, and probably for, in their minds, a low-rent readership, and so they can sort of let their true nature show. That's gross. That's disgusting. And that happens a lot in trash. It happens a lot in non-trash literature as well. But, I mean, John Updike has a career doing that. Kurt Vonnegut has a career doing that. But in trash, there's not even any highfalutin pretense of literary accomplishment to compensate for it. It's just the author airing their drunken rants, their drunken Thanksgiving rants on the page. You get something like that, that's a bad kind of trash. And I've counted a few of those this month. As of this morning, for GarbAugust, I've read 33 books. And that has spanned the spectrum of garbage. That's a lot of trash. A lot of that has been good. A lot of that has been enjoyable, but a lot of it hasn't. For one of those two reasons. Because it's either just plain poorly done, in which case the fun of going along is ruined by the sense of that you are actively wasting your time. Or that it's gross, that it's trash in the worst possible sense of the term. But another thing I learned from my GarbAugust vacation was that the good kind of trash is a fantastic palate cleanser. And I have talked on this channel many times about how one of my favorite palate cleansers, in other words, kind of a mind-resetting book, a lighter, slighter book that you read in between more major endeavors reading. I've mentioned for many, many times on this channel, one of my favorite palate cleansers is old Regency romances from Signet and Avon and Zebra. And I've had some pushback from some of you saying, well, aren't they all junk? And they aren't. They aren't any kind of garbage. They aren't either the kinds of garbage that I'm talking about. A lot of them are extremely well done examples of what they do in their genre. They're not trash at all. And they do work as palate cleansers because they are very formulaic and they will have a happy ending. But I've learned in the course of August, while I've been chowing down these 33 trash books, that good trash books also make great palate cleansers. They really, really do. And one of the main reasons why they make great palate cleansers is the third thing I learned in my GarbAugust vacation, which is that it does the critical reading mind a lot of good to rest every once in a while. If you are reading critically every single thing that crosses your path, without ever just hanging up your spurs and just going with the flow and trying to enjoy something, without picking apart how it's doing what it's doing, every detail, every page, every paragraph, to quote for the inevitable review down the line, I am a book critic. And a lot of times critics fall into that habit of just doing that without ever stopping, without ever recharging the battery. That can make your critical mind very arid and also annoying to other people. And if you read a good piece of trash, something that you're going to hesitate to mention in public, something that has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, it's just fun, just pure fun, that's a wonderful way to recharge those critical batteries. Just a wonderful way. I am now more than ever going to add a piece of good trash to the regular rotation as a palate cleanser between heavier books on the Habsburgs. The only problem is, those old-style Signet Regency romances, they had a dedicated cadre of editors, and those editors knew exactly what they wanted and made sure that the outproduct was uniform. Whereas with garbage, with a trash reading, in order to be a palate cleanser, it'd have to be good trash. And I don't always know what that is. I don't always know which books those are. So it's a little bit trickier to do, but I'm definitely going to try it more. And the final thing that I learned in my GarbAugust vacation, what I did on my GarbAugust vacation, was having my worst expectations about the event not come true, which is a bit disappointing for a doomsaying Boston Irish Catholic, but still refreshing. I made some predictions in my mind, a few of them on camera, about what GarbAugust would do, about what people would do in GarbAugust, including some of my co-hosts. And I predicted two things. One, that people would say that because they like a certain piece of trash a lot, and maybe always have, maybe they've been reading it their whole lives, rereading it their whole lives, that because they like it a lot, it mustn't be trash. It must actually be good. And although there have been some squeals from Stately Vaughan Manor about Edgar Rice Burroughs in that regard, nobody pays attention to Stately Vaughan Manor. And believe me, some of those squeals have come from me too, from 8-year-old Steve. Nevertheless, Edgar Rice Burroughs is a whole other subject. I expected a lot of that, where people read, Killer Hyenas of the Fourth Dimension when they were 14, and it was their introduction to reading, and it was the first book they owned and bought with their own money, and they maybe hid it from their parents, and they've read it ever since. They go back to it all the time, and then they reach the ripe old age of 30 or 40 when they suddenly have had the disease of being taken seriously, and they look back at that book and think, well, I still love this book, and I've loved it my whole life. That must mean it's actually good. That doesn't mean that. The Lana of Gathol is trash. Let's repeat that, okay? Lana of Gathol is trash. It doesn't matter how long I or you have read it and loved it. It is trash. And I was expecting a lot of people to do that, not only in the comments field, but even some co-hosts. And it barely ever happened. Again, squeals from Stately Vaughan Manor, but only a few, and I think partly in sarcasm, and mostly not. And hand in hand with that thing that I was expecting that didn't happen is its sister thing. Because if you've been reading, Were Roosters from Poughkeepsie your whole life, and you love it, and then you reach 40 or your knees start to hurt in the morning, and you say, well, I can't be a serious person and like this piece of trash if it's trash, and rather than admit it's trash, I'm going to say that it isn't. I'm going to wave a wand over it and say that it's never actually been trash at all. If you say that, well, Were Hens from Poughkeepsie is trash. It's self-evidently trash. And everybody knows that, and you know that, and everybody can see that, and everybody can see that you see that. And when you see that, if you try to elevate it, if you try to say that Captain Future is actually not trash, it's actually not garbage, you're going to be aware, unless you're totally deluded in a bubble, you're going to be aware that nobody agrees with you and that you are, in fact, wrong. And you can take two steps from there. You can either say, well, I love it anyway. I know it's trash, but I love it anyway, and I'd love to talk about it. And if you do that, I am your foremost friend. That is the right way to do this. There is no right or wrong way to read. You're free to like or love whatever you want. I have a million questions if you do. I want to learn to love it the way you do. It's only when you cross the line into the critical world that I have issue if you decide to defy reality and the self-evident nature of what you're reading. That's one way, is just say, well, I know it's trash, I love it anyway. But the other way is the second thing I was expecting from GarbAugust, the bane of my existence, which was a person confronted like that to say, well, it's all subjective anyway. I mean, how do we know what's trash and what's not? That is not true. That is not true. If I had got what I wanted from GarbAugust, which is live discussions, video discussions, multi-people discussions, one thing I would have wanted was to go 12 rounds with Michael K. Vaughan, because on his videos about GarbAugust, he has fallen into the habit of saying that these books that we're talking about in August are viewed as garbage by society, which is his way of saying society's wrong. Society views it this way. I think it might even be his diplomatic way of not saying viewed that way by the critics, because GarbAugust has a critic as a co-host. I don't know one way or another, but one thing I want to point out is that Captain Future or Nelson Nye or a whole bunch of other things, they aren't viewed as trash by society. They are trash. They are trash by any measure that you would use in order to say that something isn't trash. In the 21st century, we tend to work against that. We tend to say if I say something loud enough, it must be true. If I yell it, if I add expletives, then my declarations are true, even if they're self-evidently not. But nevertheless, it's not the case. And I was expecting to get a lot more of it's all subjective from everybody involved in GarbAugust. And I got almost none of it. Almost none of it. And I'm glad of that. I really am, because it's all subjective. You know that it's not true, first of all. Because if it's all subjective, then there's no spectrum. Anything could be great, and you wouldn't know it. Or you would know it, and everyone else could miss it. You know that's not true. That isn't true with any other human endeavor, no other kind of human creativity. If you're in a woodworking shop and people are making chairs, and somebody makes a chair that falls over because it has 4 different size legs, it's not all subjective. That is a poorly constructed chair. Writing prose doesn't suddenly get a magic exemption from that. It's a thing that humans do, which means some people will be better at it than others, and some examples of it will be better than others. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's no personal criticism involved there. I would like it. I like it when people see that. And I was expecting that very few people would see that for GarbAugust. GarbAugust seems to play right into it's all subjective. And I didn't get a lot of that. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Michael K. Vaughan and a couple of other co-hosts are very tenacious in not wanting to kick their childhood friends into the gutter, into the trash heap. But I say they were there all along. And I think that is more funny than anything else. And it is not. It is not the rule. Everybody on GarbAugust is perfectly willing to say when garbage is garbage. There is a lot of truth to what Michael and other co-hosts have said, which is that there is an element here of popular perception. Definitely. Like, for instance, think about the good kind of trash that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Popular perception. Society, the critics, certainly my fellow critics, would look at that good trash and say, there is no difference between good and bad trash. It's all worthless. It's all not worth your time. And there are civilian counterparts of those people who would say that it should be burned, banned, stripped from libraries. GarbAugust has underlined for me more than ever that there's a huge amount of worth in good trash. It is lots and lots of great fun. It's a reset, a mental reset for the brain. And contentions that society is the one who calls all this stuff trash are partly true in that sense. Society will look at all the stuff that we've been reading in August and say it's all just two-quart garbage, and it isn't. There are fine lines to be drawn, but the more precise aspect of that it's all subjective. So who knows? Who can tell what's good and what's not? I was expecting to be clubbed over the head with that nonstop for GarbAugust, and I was not by anybody. And that is wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful. And those two things that I didn't get, well, if I've loved it my whole life, it must not be trash. And I didn't get, well, it's all subjective anyway. The fact that I didn't get those two things when I went in worrying about them is the foremost lesson that I got from GarbAugust 2022, which is don't underestimate BookTube. Don't underestimate BookTube, either BookTubers or the people who watch BookTube. Don't underestimate this crowd. These are die-hard, dedicated readers who've not only read their whole lives, but who've thought a lot about reading their whole lives. Couldn't be in better company. Couldn't be happier to have wallowed in trash with my co-hosts and all of you out there who have watched this event. It was so much fun to do. It feels like an eternity until we return to GarbAugust next year. But I'm still going to keep trash in my reading. And I know all the rest of my co-hosts are as well. We won't be making regular videos about it, but we will still be reading trash. And with a fonder heart than ever, because thanks to Ollie, trash now has a place on the BookTube landscape. How wonderful. So that's it. That is what I did on my GarbAugust vacation. We'll bid fond farewell to GarbAugust for this year. We've got a whole bunch of other events coming up in September. They're all over BookTube. So we'll see what we can do with those, but I will be dialing back the trash for September. I don't think I will read more than 10 books that I know are garbage. I don't think I'll read more than 10 in September. It'll be back to normal. Except for, as I've mentioned many times before, the garbage that I can't help but read. The garbage that doesn't know it's garbage. The garbage, the books that I have to read and review. I'll read plenty of that. That will have to do. Oh, it's melancholy. It was fun, though. Lots and lots of fun. So I hope you enjoyed GarbAugust 2022. I hope you enjoyed it half as much as I did, and we will regather at the dump next year. Thank you, BookTube.